Today we're going to talk about a dark tale of greed, betrayal, and the consequences behind fixing boxing matches when they go completely wrong. In the high-stakes world of boxing, professional boxing that is, Tim "Doc" Anderson was a well-respected fighter. He finds himself entangled with a flamboyant, quite unethical boxing promoter, Rick Elvis Parker. So Doc and Elvis, they develop this relationship, but it turns dark very fast. Unpaid debts, prison time, threats, and eventually the unthinkable happens. Someone's murdered. Doc was a well-respected professional boxer with a solid punch. He even fought George Foreman in 1987. So Doc gains the attention of this flamboyant boxer and promoter, Rick Elvis Parker. Now, Elvis had an appetite for fixing matches and bribing fighters to do what he wanted. But Doc had desires to win. He refused to take part in this. You see, Elvis made a deal with King's main business associate. The guys got together and said, hey, if you can find me a fighter that wins about 12 matches, then I can get you a title fight for a large payout. Well, Elvis is going wild. His brain's triggering off all ends and is like, oh, money's involved, excitement. He gets very excited about this. He'll be in the spotlight once again, not only for the popularity, but mostly for the money. Elvis's fighter of choice was a huge 6'6" former football player. Now, despite Doc's refusal to lose for money, Elvis continues to work with him, paying him inadequate and making up excuses along the way, but they still are getting paid. Elvis approaches Doc Anderson again with a proposition for a must-lose match against Mark to set up a big payout. The stakes are pretty high here. Doc completely rejects this idea and he's not selling out. He tells Elvis absolutely not. Elvis is very upset by this, but honestly, he figures Doc is gonna lose to Mark anyways. Mark's much bigger, larger, so he thinks it doesn't matter. And the fight happens on June 9th, 1992. Despite being a smaller fighter, Doc dominates the match and emerges the winner, completely disrupting Elvis's plan. Now, Elvis is furious at this point that Doc won the match. Definitely strains their relationship. However, Elvis continues to actively campaign for Mark, saying he's the best thing, he's the best fighter in the world, he's the best boxer in the world. This was a fluke, this fight. Elvis says that Mark wasn't feeling well and saying that he should have won the match. So a few months later, there was a rematch under some suspicious circumstances, including a new cornerman. So Doc gets there and Doc doesn't recognize the guy that's in his corner to give him ice, supplies, things like that, water. So he hands him some water, and the water's, Doc doesn't think much of it. He drinks the water. It's kind of sweet. He continues to drink the water anyways, and he's like, hey, maybe he added sugar to it to kind of amplify me a bit. He doesn't think much of it. But after Mark shows up late for the fight, 45 minutes later, just in time for this sweet water to kind of kick in, Doc is kind of feeling the effects, and he has suspicion that he was drugged. Now, he's kind of like still warming up, but he's starting to see blurry vision. He noticed his coordination's off. He's having an out-of-body experience, and he knows he's not feeling right, like something's up. When Mark finally does show up, he's in no shape to fight. He's, again, sweating profusely. He can't see well. Mark shows up. He's all, like, pumped. He's ready to go. He's focused, laser-sharp vision. He's ready to get some redemption from the last match. And he looks over and, Doc's not Doc. He's kind of out of it. He's kind of like holding on to the ropes a bit. He's not his normal, active, energetic self. But he does fight anyways. However, he struggles to even land one punch on Mark. He ultimately loses, and he definitely suspects Elvis's involvement. Long after the fight, the janitor, after everyone closed up, there's no one else in the room, and the match is done, the janitor is cleaning the ring, cleaning the matches, the seating, and he goes into the bathroom and notices, and Doc's still in there throwing up. He's not feeling well, he barely can talk and see, and he's not breathing well. So the janitor actually calls 911, and the ambulance comes there, the police, and other resources. Essentially, this janitor saves Doc's life. From that point, his health only starts to decline even further throughout the rest of his life, and he never feels the same. In fact, Doc's doctors told him to identify the substance that he took, or he could actually slowly die. Doc and Elvis didn't talk for a long time. Both guys ended up doing their own thing, but Doc decides to write a book about cheating in boxing and how matches are fixed and things like that. And he convinces Elvis for $45,000 to do an interview for his book. So Elvis, was like, all right, I'll do it. I could use the money. They agreed to meet on April 28th, 1995. They meet in Elvis's hotel room in Orlando, Florida. Doc flies out. He brings his equipment, a recorder. He has a line of questions that he wants to ask. So this interview starts to turn more as a confrontation. Doc ends up confronting Elvis, demanding him confess about the drugs and also explain what drug that he used, because he needs to know. He also explains, the doctor said he's going to die if he doesn't know. So what does Elvis do? He blames it on someone else, and he says, you need to ask a guy from Texas that eventually did talk about it, and says he has no idea what Elvis is talking about. He never supplied drugs. This confrontation turns pretty dark, and Doc ends up feeling like, Elvis isn't really taking him serious, so he pulls out a gun to show and demand he is serious. Like, Elvis needs to explain. At this point, Elvis is freaking out. He has a gun to him, and he starts telling him whatever he wants to hear. Essentially, I'll help you pay. We can go to the doctor together. I'm concerned about your health, among other things. After Elvis convinces Doc that, everything's okay, we're going to figure this out together, Doc ends up putting the gun down on the table, and things start to calm down just a bit. And then that's when Elvis, according to Doc, gets really mad and starts threatening him and his family. At this point, according to Doc, he blacks out and he does the unthinkable. He starts shooting Elvis. And not only just shooting him, but also shooting him in areas I can't really mention on this channel. And he also takes the time to reload the gun for an overkill. After Doc is done, he calls 911. They're on the way, sirens are going off. And Doc claims that he tried to use the gun on himself, but it jammed multiple times. Doc's murder trial takes place about a year later. According to Doc's attorney and defense team, this was all self-defense. Doc acted in self-defense when he did all of this stuff, and the case should be dismissed. But before the results and we get into the legal case, I want to thank you for watching. Please consider giving me a like or dislike, comment on the video, and also subscribe. To no one's surprise, Doc's claims didn't really hold well in court. He was charged with not only murder, but premeditation. Since he brought the gun, he also had backup ammo. This is all kind of premeditation. He's now serving a mandatory life sentence without the possibility of parole. This just all goes to show, in the murky waters of fixing boxing matches, kind of a cautionary tale of consequences could unfold if greed, manipulation, betrayal, murder get involved. Things could get really dark. Do you think it's justifiable that he got a life sentence for this? Do you believe his self-defense claim? Let me know in the comments. I'm genuinely interested to know. And again, thank you for watching.